Hello, and welcome to the Designing with Love podcast. I am your host, Jackie Pellegrin, where my goal is to bring you information, tips, and tricks as an instructional designer. Hello, instructional designers and educators. Welcome to episode 133 of the Designing with Love podcast. Today, we're continuing our series called Myths in Instructional Design and Education, where we unpack common beliefs that shape how we design, teach, train, and support learning. In the last episode, we opened the series by challenging the myth that online learning is less effective than in-person learning. We talked about why format alone does not determine learning quality and why strong design matters. In this episode, we're looking at another common myth. Accessibility is optional if your learners don't request it. This myth can show up quietly in our design work. Sometimes it sounds like no one asked for accommodations, or we can fix it later if someone needs it. But when accessibility only happens after a learner encounters a barrier, we are already asking that learner to do extra work just to participate. So grab your notebook, a cup of coffee, and settle in as we explore this topic together. Before we jump in, here's how this series will work. Each episode will focus on one common myth, why it has lasted, what we know instead, and how we can make stronger design decisions moving forward. Today's myth is, accessibility is optional if your learners don't request it. At first, this idea may sound reasonable. After all, many schools, colleges, and organizations have formal processes for accommodations. So we may assume that if a learner needs something, they will ask. But that assumption creates a problem. Not every learner feels comfortable disclosing a disability or access need. Not every learner has formal documentation. Not every learner knows what to ask for. And sometimes learners may not even realize a barrier exists until they are already struggling. Accessibility should not depend only on who speaks up. It should be part of how we design from the beginning. So why has this myth lasted for so long? One reason is that accessibility is often treated as a compliance task instead of a design practice. When accessibility only shows up at the end of the process, it can feel like a checklist, a requirement, or something separate from the creative work of designing learning. Another reason is that accessibility is not always visible. We may look at a group of learners and assume there are no access needs because no one has disclosed them. But learners bring different needs, environments, devices, responsibilities, stressors, and life circumstances into every learning experience. A learner may be watching a video in a noisy space. A learner may be using a small screen. A learner may be managing fatigue, attention, vision, hearing, language, or processing challenges. A learner may be trying to complete training between work or family responsibilities. This myth also persists because people are busy. When timelines are tight, accessibility can feel like something to add later. But later often means more rework, more frustration, and more barriers for learners. Here's where we need to shift the conversation. The issue is not that accommodation requests do not matter. They absolutely do. The issue is that requests should not be the only reason we think about accessibility. A more accurate way to think about it is this. Accessibility is not an optional add-on. It is part of effective instructional design. When we design with accessibility in mind from the start, we reduce unnecessary barriers before learners have to ask for help. This does not mean every design will meet every possible need perfectly, but it does mean we are being intentional. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, often called WCAG, give designers and developers a shared way to think about making digital content more accessible. Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, also reminds us to design learning environments with learner variability in mind. I've talked more deeply about UDL in a previous episode called Designing for Everyone, a guide to universal design for learning, so I won't repeat all of those principles here. I'll link that episode in the show notes if you want to revisit it. But the conversation matters. Both WCAG and UDL point us toward the same larger idea. Learners should not have to fight the design in order to access the learning. When we plan for accessibility from the beginning, we create learning experiences that are clearer, more flexible, and more usable. And often, those choices support more learners than we originally expected. Accessibility is not just about responding to one learner's request. It is about designing learning experiences that reduce unnecessary barriers before those barriers get in the way. So what does this mean for us as instructional designers, educators, trainers, or learning leaders? It means we need to move from reactive accessibility to proactive accessibility. Instead of asking, did anyone request an accommodation? We might ask, what barriers can I remove before learners have to ask? Instead of asking, can we fix this later? We might ask, how can we make this easier to access now? Instead of treating accessibility as a final review step, we can build it into our normal design process. That might mean planning for captions and transcripts when creating videos. It might mean using readable fonts, strong contrast, clean layouts, and meaningful alt text when designing slides or handouts. It might mean organizing outline content with headings, clear instructions, and predictable navigation. It might mean avoiding designs that rely only on color, sound, speed, or one specific way of responding. These are not just technical details. They are design decisions that affect whether learners can access, understand, and participate in the learning experience. Accessibility is not about lowering expectations. It is about removing unnecessary barriers so learners have a fair opportunity to meet those expectations. Here's today's myth reset. Instead of believing accessibility is optional if your learners don't request it, remember that accessibility is a design responsibility that should be considered from the start. Learners should not have to struggle, disclose, or advocate before we begin thinking about access. Accessible design helps us create learning experiences that are clearer, more flexible, and more usable for everyone. This week, look at one lesson, module, activity, slide deck, handout, video, or training experience and ask yourself, where might a learner experience a barrier, even if they never tell me? That one question can change the way we design. Today, we challenge the myth that accessibility is optional if learners don't request it. We looked at why this belief has lasted, what it gets wrong, and how we can replace it with a more proactive and inclusive design approach. Your Myth Reset challenge this week is to review one learning resource you have created, taught, used, or supported. Ask yourself, are the instructions clear? Is the content easy to navigate? Are videos captioned or supported with transcripts? Is the text readable? Are images supported with meaningful text when needed? Then, choose one accessibility improvement you can make before a learner has to ask for it. Start small. Maybe you add captions, improve headings, simplify a crowded slide, rewrite confusing directions, or check the color contrast in a handout. The goal is not perfection. The goal is progress and intentionality. In the next episode, we'll continue the series by looking at another common myth. Technology automatically improves learning. Before I conclude this episode, here's an inspiring quote from Microsoft Inclusive Design. Solve for one, extend to many. That quote is a helpful reminder for this myth because accessibility choices often benefit far more learners than we originally imagined. When we design for access, we are not just checking a box. We are creating learning experiences that are more flexible, more thoughtful, and more humane. If this episode gave you something to think about, I'd love for you to share it with another educator, instructional designer, trainer, or learning leader who is ready to rethink what really works in learning. And don't forget to check out the companion Myth Reset case file for this episode. It will help you investigate the myth, review the design shift, and apply this week's challenge to your own course, lesson, module, or training experience. Thank you for joining me today as we opened another case in our Myths in Instructional Design education series. As you move through the week, I hope this episode encourages you to pause before accepting a familiar belief as fact. Sometimes the best design decisions begin when we question what we have always assumed to be true. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep designing with love. Thank you for taking some time to listen to this podcast episode today. Your support means the world to me. If you'd like to help keep the podcast going, you can share it with a friend or colleague, leave a heartfelt review, or offer a monetary contribution. Every act of support, big or small, makes a difference, and I'm truly thankful for you.